we're celebrating the Granby Historical Association's 75th anniversary this year with a behind-the-scenes tour of the White Cork Homestead. I'm Terry, and I'm the president/curator. And this is Belinda, our treasurer, secretary/archivist. And we have Gail, who is our newest trustee, who's been working weekly with Belinda and oversees our email. This guy needs no introduction. Everybody knows who he is. George, Santa Claus. This is George, and George is currently a trustee, and he's worn many, many hats over a long period of time, many years, and he's also in charge of our Facebook page. Before we do a tour of the building, I'm going to give you a little history about the organization. In 1946, and we have documents here of our charter, there was 15 people in town that thought we needed to do something to preserve the history. So these 15 people organized the GHA, and I believe it is April of 46. In the early years, they met at Kellogg Hall or the parish house next door, and the meeting started at 7:30 or 8 p.m. at night, and the dues were $1 a year. In 1951, we received from the town and the church the white one-room schoolhouse, which was built in 1822. They named it the townhouse because it was Granby's first town hall. You'll have to excuse me, I can't remember all of this. I have to look at notes. In 1999, we were willed this house from Marie Quirk. We named it the White Cork Homestead after Homer White, for whom this building was built, and Marie Quirk, who was the last individual to own it. The L was Mr. White's tailor shop, and people that have been in and out of this building doing things were H. Stearns, who kept a tavern called the Pitchawam House. Dr. Homer S. Bell at one time had an office here for his practice. There was also the post office here at one time. For many years, the Fisk family lived here, and Arthur Fisk was Granby's historian on genealogy, military, and property titles. We're going to move along to 2001, and I'm going to turn it over to George so he can talk about the barn.
When we acquired this property from Marie Quirk, Roland Gibbs was our president. Our collection at the time started to grow, and through the effect of some benefactors, we built a large barn out behind this house in 2001. Roland Gibbs was a driving force on the barn. It's a Morton building, 40 by 60, and it had to be approved by the Historical Commission and the Historical District Commission because we're in the Historical District. It's been a wonderful building. We've got some static displays out there, and hopefully once we're through the effects of the COVID virus, that we will be able to open up the barn and the museum also, and invite everybody into the buildings once again. To err on the side of caution, the staff and management here have decided not to open up the museum in 2020 or 21. Just for health concerns regarding the COVID.
George, could you tell us a little bit prior to building the barn and we acquired this, where the organization was looking around for a building to house our farm equipment, and where was that equipment then housed?
I'm glad you asked. We were looking for sites to display our farming and machinery equipment. And we initially tried to partner with the Granby Library. What we proposed, we had an architect from, he was a Granby resident but living in New York, draw up a set of plans to tie on to the back of the Carnegie Library building. And in the end, it didn't seem to get much attention or support, only because of what the design of the building would have been to the backside of the library and being directly in the center of town. So right after that, this property was willed to the Historical Association by Marie Quirk. So we dropped our plans over there and came here to build a barn. But that's not all we did. We looked at other sites too, and we looked at a site on Route 202, and that we decided that it would be too far away from the museum and the house to have a storage facility or even a display at a distance away. So it's nice that we've kept everything here.
Before we got this property, I noticed my husband used to go and get farm tractors and things and bring them to the townhouse when we opened. Where were all of our farm implements at that time prior to getting this property?
Yeah, most of them were stored in my barn, and of course I had no objections to that. I had we were willed from the estate of Mike Zabin a dump truck, 1, 2, 3 tractors, and some other implements. And over time, when you let these machines sit and not used, they start to have problems and ultimately fall apart. So, being conservators of this equipment, it was decided that they should be sold and purchased by somebody that was going to not only be a caretaker for this beautiful equipment, but and have somebody take care of it. The tractors were all hand crank start, as was this old truck. Now, only one of the tractors had any real significance to the town of Granby. It was a Fordson tractor, and it was used on the farm that eventually became St. Hyacinth's Seminary. This all came from the estate of Mike Zabin.
Oh, well, thank you for that. I did not know any of that. I drew a blank when it came to the barn.
Well, I don't know if Mike was the highway superintendent here in town for years and years. It seemed like forever when I was a little kid growing up here in town that Mike was the highway super. And a lot of the men on and wives, of course, on the highway department eventually became members here. Mm-hmm. Just a quick side note, as a little kid, before I got into school, they were rebuilding Taylor Street. So as the trucks came by, I could sit out there and wave to the guys going by on the truck. So Andy Mercier would pick me up in the dump truck, and away I'd go. Wouldn't even tell my mother. And Andy would let me operate the controls to pick the body up and put it down. And when Jack Clark was going by in the road grader, he would pick me up, and I got to ride in the front of in the cab of the road grader. Now today you can't do anything like.
So you knew a lot of these folks.
Good gosh.
You want to read off some names? Maybe our listeners will remember some of these folks. These are the people that were interested and organized the Granby Historical Association.
Margaret Dickinson, Frank Cole, Jean Gallup, Martha Snow, Ruth Cooley, Elizabeth Ellison. She was Colonel Ellison's mother, I believe. Winifred Fisk, Edith Kellogg, Earl Ingham, William Rust, Albert Aldrich was a huge benefactor, not only to us but to the town of Granby in general. Winfred Forward, for older town residents, Win had the Farmers Exchange Market down at Five Corners, where right now is would be the area of the post office and towards Florence Savings Bank. George Bell, old name here in Granby. Irene King. Um, let's see, George McPherson. Herb Durant, Inez Durant, Alice Nutting. Just a few. I mean,
Well, these people knew that any new organization, they needed money. And some of what they did for fundraising, and it brought in a lot. I was really surprised at the figures. The early fundraisings were card parties, and each one of those card parties that they hosted brought in about $125. They had bake sales constantly, and their revenue from each bake sale was around $300. I don't have any figures for the fall festivals or the Old Homes tour, but I thought this was kind of an interesting fundraiser, and they did this a lot. They used to have a box lunch fundraiser, and what the women would do is they would bake and get together a lunch, and the men would bid on them, and it was around $5 that they got for each one of these lunches, which was quite a feat back in the 40s. Moving on along, between 1950s and the 70s, parades were very popular in the whole area, and towns would participate and they would send floats. The association had this float, and I don't know if you can zoom in on this, and it was a working sawmill, and it won trophies in Holyoke, Belchertown, and Springfield. Along with that, we have a 1917 federal truck that they used to take along with them. And at one point in time, they had a calliope on the back for our bicentennial parade in '68. We were also in the 250th anniversary parade of this town in 2018.
can I interrupt you for a minute?
Sure.
On this truck here, this had the calliope. Mike Zabin owned the truck, and a little bit of the history on it is that it came out to Granby during Prohibition. It was the beer keg delivery truck for a place in Holyoke called Ye Old Bud. And at the start of Prohibition, it came out here and sat in Wilbur Easton's barn for almost 50 years.
There's another picture of that.
And Mike Sabin procured the truck, and he did a rehabilitation on the truck. And back in the 60s and the 70s, the towns around here were having their centennial and bicentennials, and this truck went to many, many, many parades, as did I with the fire department and the old 38 Ford.
Unfortunately, that was in the category with the tractors, and our insurance went up so much because they had flammable contents in them, and gaskets, they just get old and leak. Do you know where that truck is now?
Yes. One of the guys that used to come to the parades with Mike Zabin was Mike Boyko from Belchertown. And he has procured the truck, and he has started a restoration on the vehicle. And that truck is 104 years old, and it's been in the Belchertown parade. I took it there many, many years ago, and it was a fun thing to take through the parade. The disadvantage to getting into the truck, and I wouldn't probably be able to fit between the steering wheel and the seat back. Um,
People were thinner back then
oh
in the
gosh, yes.
early 1900s.
But you know, it was a neat old truck, and it was a hand crank to start. And if you had to hold the crank a certain way because the engines had a habit of kicking back, and if you didn't hold the crank just right, as it as it kicked back, you would the crank would come back and hit your wrist and break your wrist.
Well, people used to do a lot of these type of things before we had TV and internet. What became very popular is the association hosted monthly get-togethers with speakers and refreshments. They had speakers that came from Connecticut, Plymouth Plantation, Boston Museum. So people traveled and entertained themselves, and they had refreshments. These meetings were held in the townhouse at the time around the wood stove that was their only heat source. And this blew my mind because the average attendance to these get-togethers were between 50 and 75 people. That was amazing. This is how people entertain themselves. We're happy to do themed displays in the community, and we have partnered with the Legion in the past when they've put on dinners for our World War II vets, the Vietnam vets. We had exhibits there. We've had exhibits at the Cub Scouts Pinewood Derby. GPS across the street had car shows, and we had an exhibit there. We've done one on Charter Day. We participated in the garden show when the new library was being built, and the 250th anniversary barn quilt tours. We also have been speakers at the West Street School. We worked with, at the time, the third grade teacher, Kevin Brown, and did a series on one-room schoolhouses. And the kids just were just totally into this. I gave them addresses and gave them the pictures of where the schools were, and afterwards they went out to these addresses and took pictures of what was there now, and that ended up on the website. We also did civic groups. We were speakers at civics groups. One of the things that I remember that we had a really good time, we used to get together and have roundtables. Remember that, George? With the farmers and some of the old town residents. And they would share stories, comical stories. They had us laughing and with stitches. And they talked about their involvement in the community. We tend to, in this day and age, hire out because of liabilities gotten so crazy. But back then in the 40s, the 50s, and even the 60s, the town people volunteered to do whatever needed to be done. And they just shared stories with us. The farmers, how now you have gentleman farms. But back then it was work. It was from sun up to sundown, which is why they met at 8, 9 o'clock at night for these meetings. As society and our town landscapes are changing, we're fortunate to have pieces of our history from things that have gone, they're no longer with us, like the Granby Cafe, the phone company, West Street School, Aldridge Hall, Kellogg Hall, the Water Wheel, Camp Aldridge, Dino Land, businesses and clubs. These are all, we have artifacts and pieces of history, and they're all housed in the Townhouse Museum next door. Next year is going to be a very important year for this association because the townhouse will be 200 years old. So at this time, the history of the organization, as far as I can see, what we've done and how we've progressed and how our beginnings were. Belinda has been with us for about 7, 8 years, and she is our treasurer and our archivalist and our person that takes care of all of our archives, along with Gail's been working. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can share what you do.
I am very happy to have Gail aboard. We have accomplished quite a bit, and we don't slave. And what I mean is we faithfully get together Every Monday, you'll see us here from about 12:30 to 3:30, and we have accomplished all this, and everything's tagged, everything's numbered, and we've accomplished even more on the other side. There's still a lot to do, and I can't stress enough that any volunteer is always welcomed, and we would appreciate anyone that would like to help out. As far as the townhouse is concerned, for 200, it'll be 200 years old next year, and we can no longer ignore the condition of the building. And in September, we were given an opportunity by a business owner that had closed her store. She gave us her goods for us to sell and to put towards painting and revamping the Townhouse Museum. That was such a gracious gift. And we took it. We made things happen overnight. And there has been an extremely positive response from the community, from the businesses. Just everybody has been very, very helpful in any way they can. We did do a GoFundMe page to make it easier for anybody, and you can find that GoFundMe, Granby Museum, and it'll bring you right there. I'd love to show you more of the archival.
We're going to go in the other room so you can take out a few of the things that you've been working on.
And
you can move the camera.
Yeah, and but it's great to see everything here. People have, and remember, we don't have anything here that people don't donate or organizations don't donate, and we do take it very seriously, and we do keep it, I think, in very good order.
You know, talking about the donations, it seems like in the last 2 years, a lot of a lot of stuff that our elders had that are now coming to us kids at the museum, and it's amazing the stuff that we've all heard of and forgot that we now haven't hold.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to add to you, if you don't mind, one of the events that the older members did years ago. In December, they had a holly tea. Now we've done that a few years.
I didn't say that.
Nope. and anyways, the attraction for the holly tea years ago is that they had coffee and tea and food, and they also had a punch. Somebody was some of the members. One member was in charge of cookies. One member was in charge of breads. Another was in charge of the initial mixes for the punch, and another member was in charge of procuring the special additive to the punch.
Actually, George, I had that in my notes and I overseen.
That's all right.
But this house hosted, Marie Quirk hosted a couple holly teas here. I don't know why, but
and they were well attended.
Yeah, very well attended, and we do have some pictures of that, and that was something that people looked forward to, along with during COVID, because we have been shut down because we don't have the space or the ventilation to host things. We've been quite a few people that says, when are you going to open up next door so we can come in? So yeah, I mean, people did get used to, the townhouse being open, the holly teas, and it was a tradition.
We look forward to opening next summer when the windows can be reopened and we have good ventilation, and we're probably, hopefully, past the major COVID scare.
Yes.
And bring people back out. It's important to people to come here and see what we have for town history?
The funny thing is, the good thing about COVID is people are cleaning.
Oh,
And we have gotten some donations because people are cleaning where they usually don't, and things are surfacing. Recently, and it's on the table in the next room, we'll probably show it to you. Back then, people didn't have a set place to have meetings, so the officers and they just took things home. When we were organized, this paperwork just was in somebody's house. When that person was downsizing and went to live with Mrs. Sullivan, Peg O'Sullivan, when she downsized and went to live with her daughter showed up here one day and said, I think you need this. And that was all about the beginnings. And that's what happened. People took things from one place to the other. This is phenomenal because we have a base and things come here and we can keep and preserve things. In the next room, Brooks is recently evacuating their building, and apparently, I don't know how it happened, but the Lions Club charter ended up over there, and it came our way. So we're going to bring it to the Lions Club, see if they would like us to house it for them, because they still don't have a home base. But these things are happening during COVID, which is a good thing. It's very hard to get history, but it is coming our way. And like when the Granby Cafe was demolished, we got a phone call, and do you want a booth? I'm there, yeah, awesome. We went and got a booth. So it's always collecting. We're just very fortunate that we have a place to put it. If you want to look in the back here, Belinda's done a wonderful job. And we do have boxes that are labeled, and those are our scrapbooks. And I gotta share a story with you, because this big book here. I had heard about this 4-H scrapbook that had the wooden cover, and I was told it has to be in someone's house, very easy to get to because it's big, it's huge, and how could you lose it? This is a scrapbook from the 4-H, way back in, Ed Parker was a 4-H person back then, and this was of the 40s. And one day, I was getting a trail all over town. Check with this one, check with that one, check with this one. When the old library moved to their new spot, I got a phone call from Lou Berry, who was selectman at the time. And he says to me, Terry, you looking for the 4-H book? This was upstairs in their attic. So as a result of that, in 2014, because looking at the contents, people just didn't label things. But I noticed a lot of the pictures, newspaper articles, was of Ed Parker's group, 4-H group. So I asked him, and he got together with his sister and labeled a lot of what was in here. But these treasures are just tucked away, and they do surface. You just have to put feelers out here. This particular thing, which it's got a kind of a neat cover, it's plywood. But, feelers were put out. We didn't have anything from 4-H, and it took several years before it surfaced. So history is out there. And if anybody has any history that needs to be here, please share.
Hi everyone, this is where Gail and I spend a lot of our time every Monday. I am so proud of the most recent thing that we did, project, were our maps. The Historical Association has 79 maps. We went through them all, repaired them where necessary, and we have a index of every map here. And you could go to the index and say, like, West Street Cemetery. They're in alphabetical order, and maybe West Street Cemetery maps would be in number 25, and there might be one that's number 79, but you would be able to retrieve every map to do with West Street or West Street Cemetery. We also have town anniversaries, town churches, town departments and boards, and wars in this cabinet. They're all labeled. Every anniversary, everything that happened within the churches of the town, if we've been given it, it's here. and all our town departments, and of course all our wars, including Iran and Iraq and Desert Storm. And that's about it for this room, but we do spend a great deal of time in this room, and now we're in the other room.
Well, you have all the town records too.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I forget what those were. Those are the tax lists going
Yeah.
back to the 1900s,
Yeah.
all the way up.
And we have different archival boxes too here from some of our earlier settlers.
Right.
And but everything's labeled. If you need something, I have been asked from people out in California about a relative. They're trying to get into the DAR or something to that effect. I can't say, well, why don't you come on over? And I've researched and luckily have had the records up here and have been able to provide them with the information they needed. And they were just overjoyed. And in fact, I had to turn down a case of wine from a woman in California. That was very hard for me to do, but I said, please make a donation, and she did. And she remembers us every year. And then we'll go to the next room. Hi all, we're in the second archival room. And as you can see, there's a multitude of items on the table. That's where Gail and I are in the middle of sorting out and classifying and then filing. These file cabinets here, this is letter A through Z. And we have things in the files such as Order of the Arrow, Troop of Boy Scouts. We have about the Canes. We have obituaries in here. We have anything that isn't in the bigger drawers collection. We have photos all along here, all labeled. We have postcards, some of them about the center, that are for the center of town and other places back in the early 1900s and late 1800s. In this cabinet, we have farms, all the different farms in Granby from wherever. We have the school information, all schools, one-room schoolhouses, 1837 graduation pictures. We have genealogy A through M and genealogy N through Z. Now do realize if we have not been given any family history, we don't have it here. We have family history that has either been in the newspaper or been given to us. In that closet there are many of our old books that we have been given, and the list of every book is on this thing up here, and it tells you what shelf you can find it at. We've been trying to get everything together and put it and label it so anybody that needs anything can give us a call, and we can hopefully help them. And that is it for the archival. We spend a lot of time here. I mean, we don't. We spend only 3.5 hours on Monday, but it's still a lot of time. And there's a book of deeds, for instance, that we put together.
It's phenomenal.
Yes,
And these deeds go back to,
the 1700s.
and some of them are not recorded in Northampton. This was before they were recorded in, we were affiliated with Springfield.
Yes, pension.
So they were filed in Springfield, or they were never just never
No,
filed?
they were never.
They were never
There
filed.
was no Hampshire County House of Deeds at all. And a lot of these took place on paper between people too. You know, like maybe George owned a farm and
Like this.
and Terry's husband wanted part of his farm. He was a neighbor, and George says, "Okay, I'll sell it to you for X dollars," and he became the owner of it.
The
And
days
it's
of the
recorded in
handshakes.
there.
Yep. A lot of deals were done on handshakes back then.
Yep.
But these two ladies have done a phenomenal job. We have military records, we have town records dating back to even before our town was a town. So, you know, we have just an awful lot of information.
Yeah, back to the 1700s.
Back to the 1700s, yeah, it's
In
phenomenal.
fact, even before.
Yeah.
We have
And some of
that-
those maps are way back too. I
This-
mean, that we have in the other room.
Yeah, are before.
This is an example. This is an example of how things come with us. I was talking previously about Brooks' real estate agent in town that is going up for sale. This was found in the office. It fell behind the desk. So at some point in time, they either met there or somebody was affiliated with them and had this. This is their charter. And not too many members have seen this. So this will be taken over to their Lions Club meeting and see what they want to do with it. So yeah, these things, you know, they keep coming our way, which is phenomenal. I do not know what the significance of this is, other than that it looks pretty.
That was very common on charter certificates.
Well, it was funny because this was on a board with oilcloth, and I had taken it home and forgot it in my car. This was recently. This was this week, and the temperatures went way down. By morning, the glue had come loose from the board. So this is wonderful. We don't have to even try to get it off the board. We try to archival things in acid-free sleeves so they don't deteriorate any further. There is a couple of very old books. Do you remember those crazy books we put the papers in?
What?
The papers that we cut out and put in?
No.
We have some very, very old books, and they're hand sewn, and the covers are newspapers.
Oh, I think they're in the
That's
drawer,
what
Terry.
I
I
thought.
think on the top drawer.
Yeah, I thought that's where they were.
Are they in back?
Nope. Nope, you should have taken those out.
How about the box with the over there by the safe? Over there by the safe, the box. Over there by the safe on the right hand side
Here?
of the safe. Yep. Are those them?
No, they should have. Anyways, we do have some in here, and I should have taken them out prior. The covers are newspaper, and they're hand sewn. And instead of taking them apart to retain the information, what we did is we cut acid-free paper to the size and stuck it in each sleeve, and then we put the whole thing in an archival slip cover.
I don't know.
Yeah, I should have.
I don't know.
Yeah,
If you called it by name, I could tell.
but I don't know what. We still have an awful lot of stuff here. Lots and lots of stuff. They're right
At
here.
school administration.
Nope, they're not here. Oh well. I think we have. Nope.
That's school administration.
Can't show you this time. I should have thought of taking that out. That was really, really important. We try to preserve it and keep it in its original state.
Do you remember what the topic was, or what the subject matter was in those books?
I think they were journals. Or no, not journals. They were ledgers of some sort. We tried to keep that. It was just phenomenal. And those were found in Kellogg Hall, and they went around town until they came to us. It's very expensive for our town clerk to have preservation done professionally, and funds are limited, so our funds are very limited too. But years ago, we helped a gentleman with some information he wanted. Mary Ann Deal was our research person at the time, and he lived in Germany. And he was very, very specific. He was going to give the association $1,000. It had to be used for archival supplies, and we did not get the check until we sent him the receipts for that. But it was our first boost with getting archival supplies, because they are pricey, and that was a wonderful, wonderful donation, and he was very appreciative. So, I'm sorry I interrupted you. Go
No,
ahead.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. I've seen so much and handled so much paper that it's hard for me to recall. you know, one thing from another, especially if it happened. I remember the book you're talking about.
Yeah, we
and I
sat here and we
remember
cut out acid-free
doing
sheets and
Yeah.
stuck them between the papers because I wanted to keep it as is because it was incredible. I mean, some of the things the newspaper covers were talking about were runaway slaves and what there was a bounty out for them. So it was the early 1800s. So I thought that was really something we should preserve. And it's filed. I don't remember where we filed it, but it is here. So, if we're done with the talk, we can start with the tour. Okay, we're ready now to give you a tour. It's kind of hard, it's kind of close quarters here. I put out 2 quilts that we have. Our quilts, we do have a quilt collection. They are recorded and they are put on labels. They're recorded in Lowell. There's a textile factory there. These were taken to Deerfield. And we do have this room over here where this is our textile room. Alex, we don't have light in here. This is our textile room, and this is where we have hats, our quilts that I took 2 out to show you. We have hats and we have spats, we have fans, we have carpets, hand-woven carpets, and we have a lot of dresses, and this is our textile room. Now over here, oops, you're too tall. This is our archival supplies. So as we're working, we keep, Belinda is our supply agent also. She wears many hats. It looks like a lot, but when these ladies are working, they go through a lot. So as they get down, she replenishes, so we're not in the middle of a project and run out of supplies. Over here is kind of a mishmash of albums. I have an album of West Street School. We were invited to go in there after it was closing at the time, but I was able to take a whole bunch of pictures of the character of the school. And this to me was so important. Before the kids left that year, they wrote goodbyes on all the chalkboards, so I took pictures of them. The kids really loved that school. New school is beautiful, but the kids had an attachment here. So we made an album of this, okay? And also in West Street School, some of the teachers left some of their little albums behind. This was one of the teachers, and I'm not sure which one. I haven't had time to go research. But it shows the kids playing. This was the Tuesday, Thursday group. Here's another album. The kids wrote letters. It's just wonderful what was found in there. This was in '87. The kids put their name and they wrote little stories and put their pictures. So these were things that were found inside West Street School, and they came our way. There's another album downstairs of our 250th anniversary parade. And this was given to us. Somebody took pictures of it, and they came our way. We have another album downstairs. This was a project that Ruth Rule did. She had acquired all of the stuff from the Clark family, and she wrote a book about it, and she gave us all of the original paperworks, the letters. So it was a 3-volume thing, and we have the book for sale downstairs. In this room is, whoa.
We still have to get to that room.
This room is a storage room. When the schools were cleaning out, they gave us pictures of the graduating class going back to 92, and they had them, I don't know where they had them, but they all ended up here. So we have the graduating classes, quite a few of them, and we have some wonderful newspapers. Kind of hard to archival newspapers, so they're in archival sleeves, and we kind of stack them here. We're looking for a better situation. This particular newspaper was incredible. it gives, well, Belinda, why don't you talk about this newspaper? Because this was a recent find. There we go. Awesome. Why don't you talk about the newspaper first?
Okay. This was great. Gail and I were working together. We're going through newspapers, and I said, Gail, 1864. And she looks at me, and I said, Civil War. Well, it was even better than that. It was November. It was 1864, and in the paper had all the results from the Lincoln-McKellen presidential election. And it went by county, and it had Hampshire County, and it had Granby, and 128 men, women couldn't vote back then, voted for Lincoln and McKellen. And it's really in very good shape. Of course, the paper was made from rag, so a lot of it, is kept, because of that. Trying to get the places over on the other side, Terry, I think.
Yeah, the results are here.
Yeah, the results are here. And over here, I know you can't see it, but there's Granby. Let's see. I can hardly see in here. But can you see, Terry, at all? Starts here,
No, we're gonna have to
Granby.
pick up on that on another time.
Yeah, right here. It is Granby, right here. I don't want to... But anyways, it does say Granby. Here, let's see, Brimfield. Thank you. Chester, right here. And we go up here. They didn't have columns neatly. Here we go. Thank you. Granby, 148 voted for Lincoln. 13, 27, and then the columns are labeled.
So Lincoln won the town.
The Lincoln won the
Yep.
town.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, it did.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, he did. And the people running were Lincoln was the first column, McClellan was the second column, Andrew for governor, and can't read his name, the lieutenant
But
governor.
we have a lot of newspaper things that pertain to Granby. Mostly the bicentennial in '68. They had a special paper just for that. But getting back to this is one of the books I was talking about that are hand sewed, and it was just phenomenal because we couldn't take them apart. So this is acid-free sheets of paper, and we cut them to preserve this the best we could, and then it goes into an archival sleeve. But you just have to, think of how we best can preserve these things. The ink is running from one page to the other, so the only way to do it is to put these papers. But it is all hand sewed. This is just one of them. This wasn't one that had the newspaper on it, though. But we did that with a couple of books that were bouncing around town and needed some. This was from 1815.
And they are in that box.
Oh, they are? Okay.
Yeah. The second
So
box.
this is our storage room. We have portraits. We've got this come out of West Street School right behind you. It didn't make it to the new school, and it ended up here because she was a teacher. But the girls in town here, the Girl Scouts, we did a capsule that went up in this space shuttle. And it was an anniversary of the Girl Scouts, and all the girls signed this little paper and was supposed to go up in space, which it did, just didn't come back. So this ended up here too.
Was this the Challenger accident or no?
Yes, this was, yes,
Okay.
yes. This is Krista McCullough, the teacher that went up in space. All of these perished. Was up there for, 10 seconds? It wasn't very long. So it didn't make it to the new school, and so it ended up here. We changed displays a lot next door, so a lot of this stuff, depending on what my theme is next door, I will take from here, bring it over there, and then dismantle what is there. So the displays are always fresh and being changed. That is it for up here, and we can go downstairs. Yes. Okay, we're in the den here downstairs. And this has come our way recently, was donated by Ruth Rule in memory of her parents. Raymond Moody did every one of these carvings by hand, and each one of these pieces work. And I can demonstrate a couple of them. These all work. This took over 40 years to do, to hand carve, and this was featured, haven't gotten written proof of it, but it is said that this was in the 1939 fair in the Massachusetts building.
It was at the World's Fair.
World's Fair, I'm sorry, the World's Fair. I did get a guide to the World's Fair, and this is the Court of States, and it didn't give what was in each building, but we were told that, and it's such a beautiful piece, I'm sure it was displayed. This Raymond Moody died at 91 years old and lived in Holyoke, and Ruth's father was the recipient of this. He thought very highly of Granby, and he lived here right across from Breezy Acres on Pleasant Street. So over here we have the living room, and as you can see, there's a lot of stuff here. It is my intention to, these are all old games, from the 1800s. A lot of them have Indian origin, and at some point in time, I want to share this with the kids in town and let them experience what the old games were like. We have, this was called quoits, which is like horseshoes, and you have two stakes and you throw them, and you can, Tiddlywinks was an old game, pick up sticks. You had, the ball in the cup, Jacob's ladders, jacks, kaleidoscopes. Here we have a member, and I would love to have the kids, my intention is to do this with the schools, is to have the kids write their name in calligraphy. And we have quill pens, and we have a mixture to make ink, which is washable. Very important, that was the one thing I was asked. And we have paper, so that's going to go with the games. We have, instead of barrel rings, which we could not get, we have hula hoops. But we have these things where the kids are going to go through a obstacle course with the hula hoops. This is part of the obstacle course, as is this. We've got some stuff that's been so long. This is also a game where you have to throw this back and forth to one another. Most of these have Indian origins. We have some frisbee toss where you have a hoop that you have to try to get them in. So hopefully this year this is going to happen. COVID really put us off track as far as doing any of these things.
Yeah, a lot of these games have like a lot of relevance to some modern games, like
Yes.
your
Oh,
horseshoes, your cornhole.
Yes,
Maybe
absolutely.
some lacrosse.
These are the older version, and what I did do, and I don't have one here because I put it away. It's with my paperwork. I wrote the origins and gave an illustration of each of the games, and I want each child to take a packet home. So it's kind of like a teaching tool, which is what we do. Also, the art teacher at the high school is making us boards with cutouts so the kids can put their faces in there and they can look like they are from Little House on the Prairie. So this is a project still sitting here but waiting to go. We thought this would be a nice thing to do at the Dino Fest, is have the kids, the younger kids, the little kids, go into a sawdust thing and pick out these eggs, and they break them open and there's little dinosaurs in them. So we thought that was a good thing. Again, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. This COVID will be behind us. Over in this room, this is our dining room. When we have a holly tea or something, we usually serve in here. But this is our bookcase. Let me open it up so you don't get a glare. all of these books, these are books from authors in town. We have any books that have like things like this, that means they've been read and they've been tagged where Granby is mentioned in these books. And we have some old Bibles here from families. So, you know, people do come in and ask about these kind of things. We actually have a tremendous amount of talent in this town. At one point in time, we sponsored an artisan show, and it was in the parish house, and a writer's show. Yeah, over there. And the writers in this town, I mean, they manned the whole day themselves, and so did the artisans. We have so much talent in this town. It's unbelievable. So that, other than going into the kitchen, which is where we have our meetings, our small meetings. Oh, this is gonna stay open for air. Coming over here, this is a private collection of pewter that is on loan to us. And over here is our, this is where we have small meetings, and right now it's full of our merchandise because the girls have been doing craft fairs and
These are part of the donations that we got from the resident.
Yep.
Where we're trying to raise money for the painting
Yep.
and the restoration of the townhouse.
so this all goes with the ladies when they do craft fairs.
And
So go
we're
ahead.
hoping also, aren't we hoping to get together?
We are working on something for the end of January with the Protestant church to do some kind of a winter sale. It's still in the works yet. So that concludes our tour. Thank you very much for joining us and sharing our 75th anniversary with us.